Well, what a day. Because if there's ever like just that little sense of anticlimax when things go so beautifully and so smoothly, let's just remember that, you know, the extreme repression, it's the echoes, yeah, the acoustics, I've got to get used to this.
Speak slowly.
When what we've seen with people being jailed just for walking on the road for 15 minutes, when we've seen people being jailed just for saying the words climate change, fuel poverty in court, when we've seen so many of us now, as we speak, our friends, people we love, in prison for taking action to protect life, to uphold international law, when we think about how that kind of repression is the opposite of everything that is good in the human spirit, well, a day like this, when we exercise democratic freedoms and we reinforce them, those freedoms that were so hard won, and by coming together in our numbers, we remind people those are our democratic freedoms, those are our rights. That is a wonderful thing that we have done. I think it takes a little bit of time just to kind of process what's happened, what happens next, to just a couple of details, which is all I can kind of hold on to. There was a lawyer in that building, the Ministry of Justice, the government legal department has just moved into that building alongside the Ministry of Justice and the Crown Prosecution Service. One of the lawyers came out to talk to us. He read our message, wanted to circulate it to all the other lawyers in that building. And he said, someone in the office said, we should take a photograph of them from inside the building. And I said, well, will you send that to me? He goes, yes. So we will have that visual evidence of what impact we're having inside that building. Just another little detail of the impact. Our good friend, Lord Wolney, the arms and oil industry lobbyist, and yeah, you should, you know, in lots of ways, we shouldn't take him too seriously, but since his report calling for Just Stop Oil Palestine action to be treated as organised criminals, that is what's happened. So in some ways, that's pretty chilling. Well, he has been tweeting our briefing document, believe it or not. He has been tweeting our briefing document going, look, they're talking about burner phones. I told you they were organised criminals. Right, this is desperate. This is desperate. And I don't know how much he really understands about criminal intelligence. He's tweeted our Google document, and as we speak, some updates are being made to that Google document about Lord Wolney and his conflicts of interest. So thank you, Lord Wolney. And just the last thing before I hand over, because obviously people are going to be asking where we go from here. Well, I don't know, going to take some time, think about what's happened today, learn the lessons of the day, but just one idea, just one possible vision. Now that we've seen what happens when we come together in our numbers, just imagine if early next year, well, there's 600 of us, but with other people who've now seen that this is safe, with us are some of those sub-postmasters who felt the injustice that occurs when corporate interests dictate the outcomes of what happens in court. With us are people from Grenfell. With us are people who suffered injustice through the court system for decades, for centuries, and we are outside Parliament with our exhibition of political prisoners on a day when we know all the people in power are going to be there. and we hold that space, well, maybe, you know, that is the next time we see each other, but just a thought, and thank you all so much for being here, in particular all of you who travelled from, I can't list all the places, from Sheffield, from Kendal, thank you so much, from Bournemouth, thank you so much. Okay.
We're not hearing that.
If we could try without the mic.
See if it's any better without the mic.
I wonder if it's any better without the mic.
Yes.
I see, all right. I'm getting shakes of heads from back there, so I'm going to slowly speak. Yeah. So thank you, following on from Tim, for coming. Today we're going to be using this time together to talk through and process some reflections that have come from political prisoners as well as from our allies fighting for justice across the world. I want to invite, as we start, Rachel White, if you may, come forward to read. Yes, we're going to mic you up.
Yeah, thank you.
Rachel, are you reading any? I'll let you just take this, actually.
Thank you. A lot of people here will know about CGAN, which is called Climate Genocide Act Now. But in case anyone doesn't, I will quickly update you on the significance of CGAN's work. CGAN seeks to use international and UK criminal law in the context of climate breakdown. It comes as a surprise to politicians and fossil fuel companies, but there are laws against killing hundreds of thousands of people a year, starving and flooding millions, and starting a process that leads to the complete annihilation of low-lying island states. Back in 2019, CGAN submitted a dossier of evidence to the police that proved politicians were breaking the law. Had the police acted on that back in 2019, no one would have needed to take dynamic action to stop the climate criminals, because the police would have done it for us. The CGAN story is long. I don't have time to explain it to you now, but in 2023, CGAN proved to lawyers acting for the Met Police that the law had been broken and the police should have commenced a criminal investigation into those primarily responsible for contributing to mass death and suffering. The Met Police refused to enforce the law, so CGAN wrote to every judge we could who had heard a climate-related court case, be that JSO, XR, or This Is Rigged, and other groups. We also wrote to the board members of the CPS. We told them that climate defenders only took the action they did because the Met Police had refused to uphold the law. Worse still, when we proved to the Met it was acting unlawfully, it still refused to commence the criminal investigation. Here's the crucial part. The CPS and judges know the law are refusing to uphold the law. Judges now know the police protect those who kill and prosecute those trying to stop the killers. But the CPS carries on prosecuting climate defenders and judges carrying on hearing trials. JSO and others who have been imprisoned are technically political prisoners because the state protects the killers and imprisons those who take non-violent dynamic action to stop the killers. You are a political prisoner when the state applies one rule for the powerful and another rule for those who challenge power. For the lawyers here, I will say this. Article 25 of the Rome Statute of the International Criminal Court criminalises acts defined as common purpose. You don't have to personally kill an Ethiopian by starvation, you merely have to contribute to the outcome. Article 30 allows for prosecutions of direct intent and oblique intent. And all that legislation was brought into UK jurisdiction by the International Criminal Court Act 2001. And all judges who hear climate cases know it. If you want to learn any more about CGAN or support, you can go to climatecriminals.co.uk. Thank you for listening.
Thanks, Rachel. Rachel.
Sorry.
Thank you, Rachel. So next I'm going to invite Frida to come up and speak. I'm surrounded on both sides, as we all have been all day, with political prisoners. Some of us know Roger Hallam, currently serving time for the longest sentence for a peaceful protest. We also are going to be hearing, I believe Frida is going to be reading from some of the longer quotes in front of you from current political prisoners. You're not. Apologies. Okay, well, I'll let you take what you want to say, but by all means, Frida, I don't know if you can mic yourself up in 1 minute. Over here?
Or shall I just use your mic?
No, I'm going to hold on to mine.
Cool, thank you.
Sure.
Hello, everyone. Hi, I'm Frida. I'm not going to read out the definitions in front of you. I'm sorry to disappoint. I will read out a couple of letters written up slower. Hello. I'm Frida. I am going to read out a couple of letters that were written by the people who are currently in prison to the Attorney General. Because I think as we do this, it's really easy to see this as something we do for the people in prison or in sympathy with people in prison, you know. But really, we're taking this action together with our friends in prison. They take action that they can take right now, and they have taken action and have made the decision, the free decision, to do what they think is right in this moment in time. And that's how they ended up where they ended up now, which is really coming from a position of power and great courage. So this is how we should keep them in mind while we're here together. So I'm going to read out the letters that they sent to the Attorney General recently, starting with a letter from Daniel Shaw, who is in Wayland prison together with Roger. Dear Mr. Hermer, I'm writing in support of the Free Political Prisoners campaign and the upcoming protest they are organizing for United Nations Day on the 24th of October. In July of this year, I was jailed for 4 years following my conviction for the role I played in a series of Just Stop Oil protests in November 2022. My 4 co-defendants received sentences ranging from 4 to 5 years.
Try and mic yourself up before I come on.
These are the longest known sentences for peaceful protest in British history. I know that to some, the actions of Just Stop Oil are deemed excessive and the punishment received appropriate. However, as I'm sure you're aware, there are many justifiable concerns about how the trial was conducted, which will have significant ramifications for the future of protest in this country if steps aren't taken to address them. Judge Hare, the presiding judge, displayed a hostile attitude towards the defendants throughout our trial. He ruled out all our defenses, was dismissive of concerns raised by the UN Special Rapporteur for Environmental Defenders, and classified expert witness statements from leading climate scientists as merely political opinion and belief. During the trial, after considerable debate, Judge Hare agreed to allow the defense and prosecution to submit 4 facts to the jury that were not in dispute. This was an effective admission by the court that the threat posed by the climate crisis and the UK government's continued issuing of oil licenses in 2022 represented an existential threat to our country and civilized society. However, following this admission, Judge Hare then decided that this information was irrelevant to the jury's deliberations and continued the trial as though the protest had been nothing but a criminal enterprise. This is clearly a misrepresentation of the defendants and the motivations underpinning our actions. If the above-mentioned state of affairs is allowed to continue, it will have a chilling effect on protests in the UK. Protest has played a decisive role in winning many of the rights we enjoy today, and is often the most effective method that ordinary people have of creating publicity and political pressure around important issues. Failure to prevent the UK court system from suppressing dissent in this manner will stifle future acts of civil disobedience and undermine the UK's status as a leading democratic nation. Further to this, and much more importantly, it will enable courts to silence everyday people protesting against the most important crisis of our time, the destruction of the stable climate on which we all rely to supply us with the essentials of life and maintain a functioning society. Failure to take sufficient action to address what is happening means being complicit in the genocide of the Global South and future generations. I'm aware of your status as one of the country's leading human rights lawyers. Your appointment to the post of Attorney General has brought with it a great deal of hope and expectation among those who are doing everything they can to minimize the effects of climate breakdown. I'm writing to ask that you live up to this expectation and do everything in your power to prevent the UK court system's attempts to shut down and excessively criminalize acts of protest and civil disobedience. If you're able to do this, history, future generations, and many in the Global South will thank you for it. Good luck in your new role, Daniel Shaw. That's cute, isn't it? I feel like, shall we do all 2 letters? Shall I do one more letter? It's quite long. One more? Do you want to?
Speak slower.
Oh my God, even slower. It's going to be a long night, guys. Do we want Lou's or Amy's letter? Oh.
Amy's.
I will slow it down. I'm sorry. I'll take it that was slow it down. I couldn't hear it. Sorry. Okay, let's do Amy's letter. I'm sure everyone here is aware of Amy. Amy. She's in prison. Thank you. Oh my God. Amy is back in prison after she was bailed because of an error of the probation services. So she is literally spending time in prison right now just for them not being able to tag her and knocking on her door, someone arguably not hearing it. This is the kind of reason for which we send people in the UK to prison. So let's read one more letter from her, and then I'll pass on to someone with a naturally slow speech. Further away? Okay. Thanks for the feedback. Dear Attorney General, how are you? My name is Amy Pritchard, and I am writing to you from HMP Style in Cheshire, where there's training and failure of the criminal justice system is clear to see every day. I am currently here because of the failures of Serco and the HDC and SDS40 schemes, and was originally placed in prison in relation to holding JP Morgan Chase to account for their fossil fuel investments. I admire very much your work in holding power to account. For example, for residents of Grenfell Tower, also with victims of police misconduct, and in relation to air pollution, and the greenwashing of the airline industry. I imagine that, like me, you have many young people in your life that you care deeply about and are focused on what kind of world will be left to them. I hope you are taking advice and the very best information we have about our impacts on planetary systems and what is required to preserve some kind of organized human society for our youth. In February 2023, along with others, I was banned at trial by Judge Silas Reed from explaining my motivations to a jury, including specific restrictions on the words climate change and fuel poverty, or mentioning a word about the proud human history of civil resistance. This silencing has been noted in newspapers and legal commentary around the world and condemned by Michel Forst, UN Special Rapporteur for Environmental Defenders. Do you agree with the UN Secretary General that the dangerous radicals are not us, but the governments and businesses that are still increasing the production of fossil fuels? I wish that the legal system had the teeth to seriously address the real danger. Prison is a highly frustrating environment to be in, and a very sad one. I spend my days with women consistently failed by society, who have been offered the tiniest fraction of resources and opportunities in comparison to you or me. I wonder what society could look like if the postcodes that prisoners come from were invested in, to the tune of the financial resources invested in incarcerating their residents. Prison harms the forgotten children of prisoners the most. It creates more crime and more victims, failing almost completely in rehabilitation and any semblance of decent care for humans with many complex needs. It is an absolute disgrace. I expect my life to be filled with witnessing the continued destruction and suffering of communities and whole countries, mass death, conflict, and disease on a scale never seen before, alongside grotesque wealth scrambling for continued power and resources. I am heartbroken and do not understand why we would be so reckless with this precious biosphere and the miracle of life. There are predictions that up to 3 billion of our brothers and sisters may be in unlivable temperatures by 2070. And already, right now, UNICEF says that almost half the world's children are at extremely high risk of climate impacts. This deserves repeating, that almost half the world's children are, as I write this, in severe danger, and it's not enough to spur the powerful into appropriate action. I cannot accept the power dynamics that allow this situation to exist. I understand that there will be many people coming to visit you soon. That's you guys. And I hope that you will find time in your busy schedule to meet with representatives of them and discuss the increasing restrictions on protesters, including new laws and the embarrassing role of Lord Wolney. From HMP Style with Respect, Amy Pritchard.
That's beautiful, thank you. Frida, the mic.
Oh, yeah.
Can I ask, can you hear me at the back if I speak without the microphone? Yes. Can I ask that the speakers please speak loudly and clearly without the microphone, because the microphone is causing the most incredible echo, and a lot of us really can't hear what's being said. Is that possible?
Okay, all right, let's go for it. So I'm about to invite Saeed. I wonder whether you want to mic up. I'm about to invite an incredible activist from Palestine Action, our allies who are being imprisoned severely. Saeed is a Palestinian. His grandfather was imprisoned by the British under the Mandate in Palestine. And we're honored to be joined by him today. I'll let you take your time and come in.
All right. So, thank you. You want me to try?
Try it.
I'll try without a microphone at all. Does that work? Okay. Here? The middle of the room. All right. No, I can't. I can't. All right. I'll try like this. Okay. I always like to begin discussing Palestinian resistance in this country by discussing Britain's complicity in the colonization of Palestine. As I'm sure you know, this was the country that first supported the Zionist movement to colonize Palestine. This was the country that wrote the Balfour Declaration that promised British support for a homeland in Palestine. This is the country that trained and armed the Zionist militias that ethnically cleansed Palestine in 1948. And this is the country that continues to arm Israel and continues to provide diplomatic cover for Israel. So we have to understand that continuity to understand why pro-Palestinian activists in this country occupy a very specific role in the resistance. And one of the things that Israel also inherited from the British, aside from the architecture of colonialism, one of the most egregious policies that is called administrative detention. Administrative detention means the state can arrest you for no reason, you're offered no evidence, you have no access to a lawyer, you have no access to the charges against you. In fact, there may not even be charges against you. You have no access to the evidence against you. This practice is so widespread that 20% of the entire Palestinian population, 40% of the male population, has been through the Israeli prison system at one point. And what that means is something very unique for the Palestinian people. In this country, we're raised and socialized to believe that if you're arrested, you're a bad person. That if you're arrested, you've done something wrong. That you've made a mistake. But not so in Palestine. Palestinian prisoners are proud of the fact that they confronted the state and they won. No matter what the outcome of those cases, the fact that they've been arrested or the fact that they've been detained means that they have been victorious because the state fears them. And that's a great source of power and a great source of pride. In prison, Palestinians form new networks of solidarity. They learn Hebrew. They learn the culture of the occupier. They learn how to create networks across separate resistance groups that on the outside may have been enemies. And so, in fact, they strengthen the movement for Palestinian liberation from the inside of a prison, to the extent that Palestinians consider them the moral compass of the resistance. We're so proud, in fact, that it's a rite of passage for most Palestinians to pass through the prison system. Now, actionists in this country, with Palestine Action, for example, we understand that they make a sacrifice because most of them will be arrested. Many of them, like myself, will be tried and found guilty. But at the same time, we understand that is a tiny sacrifice when compared to the sacrifices of the Palestinians, especially today, experiencing the genocide that we see every day on our phones and our TV screens in Gaza. And it's for this reason that we use the phrase, "We didn't liberate Palestine, but Palestine liberated us." It's a beautiful phrase, but I think of it not only as a metaphor. I think of it in a very practical sense, because when you stare down a row of 20 or 30 policemen, and you see that they are the ones afraid of you, that they are the ones who don't know how to handle actionists who no longer have fear of the state. That is one of the most empowering moments of one's life. I've never felt stronger than that moment, surrounded by 6 or 8 police vans with 20 or 30 cops staring at me, wondering what to do, confused as to why I would be locked on in front of this office building, nervous to approach me. And I've never seen my relationship with the state in the same way since. So not only has the movement for Palestinian liberation freed me, but we also understand logistically that companies like Elbit Systems, one of the targets of Palestine Action, they not only create the drones that are killing Palestinian children every day, but the British state then buys those drones back from them. And the British state uses those drones to survey the English Channel for the world's most desperate people trying to arrive on our shores, asking for asylum. The British state envies the scale of Israel's surveillance system that Elbit Systems creates. A system where everyone is tracked, where everyone's movement is recorded in and out of every checkpoint.
So I'm going to keep this a little bit shorter.
So the British state would love to have that level of control. And when we challenge Elbit in Israel and Palestine, we also challenge the British state's surveillance here. And we know that the work of these imprisoned actionists in this country is effective, not only because Palestine Action has managed to shut down 3 sites in this country, 2 factories actually creating munitions, and 1 head office. We know that not only because the CEO of Elbit Systems and the Israeli ambassador begged the Attorney General to involve themselves more in the trials of Palestine Action. And we know that not only because last year Elbit showed negative revenue for the first time in the company's history, but we know most of all because the Palestinian people have told us so. In July of 2023, the Palestinian Prisoners Movement, this is a union of Palestinian prisoners within Israeli jails, they released a statement in support of the political prisoners in this country. They said, first, we express our sincere appreciation for the efforts made by the Palestine Action Movement. Second, the Palestinian Prisoners Movement condemns Elbit Systems and all British and other companies marketing their weapons as battle-tested on Palestinians. And third, we condemn the British authorities' arrest of members of the Palestine Action Movement. So I want us all to be aware that when you put yourselves on the line, when you risk arrest, yes, it's a sacrifice, but at the same time, it's a privilege to be involved in an international liberation movement. And it's a privilege to be recognized by Palestinian prisoners themselves as comrades in the shared struggle. And that we are inheriting a long legacy of resistance that goes all the way back to my grandfather, also named Saeed Teji Farouqi, arrested in 1938 by the British authorities for his involvement in resistance. So we should see ourselves as inheritors of that proud legacy, and that when the Palestinian people in their greatest hour of need called out to us, we answered that call. Now I want to end with a few lines from a Palestine Action political prisoner, Zoe Rogers, one of the Filton 10, who was arrested under the Terrorism Act for sabotaging an Israeli weapons factory. So when I mentioned the Israeli policy of administrative detention, we're seeing that policy reproduced in this country, the misuse of law to imprison people for political acts. And Zoe wrote a statement from inside. I won't read the entire thing, but it begins as an explanation. They say, when they ask me why I did it, I tell them about the children, how their childhood was stolen from them. And it ends like this. Finally, I talk about how it was us that started it with our Balfour Declaration and media suppression, and I say, I cannot stand for this. It can go on no longer, so I took action against Elbit, their weapons supplier. But I never forget to say that it was love and not hate that called me. Watching their songs and dances for freedom, reading their hope-filled books, listening to their dreams of being doctors, teachers, journalists, and never giving up. Thank you very much.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Saeed.